AITAH for serving my 30F sister-in-law 32F dinner on a kid's plate? My husband and I have family dinners at our house every month or so with our family. I have some sets of fine china that I like to switch out between the seasons that I've inherited from my grandmother. When we have our get-togethers, I serve dinner on these plates. My mill compliments them every time. My sister-in-law, however, has made comments to me that they're not her style. I honestly didn't think twice her comment about it until this past February when one of my plates was put in the sink, broken. Chalked it up to an accident. In April we had another dinner. This time Sil was carrying both her and her boyfriend's plates to the sink, and accidentally dropped both. Again, no biggie at all. In May she broke 2 more plates, and in June she broke a plate and a cup. At this point I was catching on. I brought up these concerns to my husband and he brushed it off as accidents. I told my mom and she said she thought my Sil was doing it on purpose and got me a camera to put in my dining room. In July we had dinner, and I had an opportunity arise. My mill, Sil and her boyfriend joined us for dinner. While our plates were still on the table, my mill asked how my plants were doing and I said I'd show her. I told my husband to follow us outside so he could show her the plant he's growing, leaving Sil alone with her BF. When we came back inside 5 minutes later, her plate was broken. When they left, I pulled up the camera footage. I saw her stand up when we walked out and peek around the corner, and then throw the plate on the ground. I kept this video to myself. That brings me to this past weekend. We had our family dinner and we were joined by my in-laws, Sil and her boyfriend, as well as my parents, siblings and niece. I served everyone, saving evil Sil for last. I brought her food out on a child's plate with a sippy cup and got those kids' silverware with the plastic handles. She looked at me confused and said, "I think you mixed my plate up with your niece's plate." And I said, "No, niece's name is responsible enough to eat on a grown-up's plate. If you're going to act like a child in my home, I'm going to treat you like a child in my home." She tried to play coy, but I had my iPad ready and played the video to everyone at the table. She started sobbing, swiped the kids' plate off the table and stormed out. My in-laws both apologized and offered to pay for replacement plates, but I told them not to worry about it. Despite this, we still had a nice time. When everyone left, my husband told me I was out of line and cruel, but I told him that this has been happening for months and I've told him it was bothering me multiple times. It's Wednesday, he's still being a little cold to me, and I also got a text from my SIL's boyfriend asking me if I would apologize to her because I really embarrassed her. I sent him the video again and he left me on read. My husband just called me to ask if I was taunting her boyfriend because his sister called him crying that I was. So, am I the asshole? Just curious. Why is your husband still defending her? Her own parents aren't on her side. You're supposed to be a team, and your husband is not acting the part. AITAH, but your husband is. Not the asshole. Excuse me. You dropped your crown. Well played, clapping hands, light skin tone. But I don't understand as to why you must apologize when your Sil is deliberately damaging your property and doing it behind your back. By your husband? Don't invite Sil and her boyfriend anymore since she's uncivilized. Not the asshole. She is deliberately breaking treasured keepsakes from your grandmother. You should have tied a bib around her chin as well. And you have a husband problem. Jam. Justified asshole move. Make it a thing. Her behavior was malicious. She hasn't apologized but is playing the victim. She should not be allowed in your home, until she can apologize and replace the item she broke. Even then it would be a no-go for me. Who knows what else she'd do? Maybe stick your toothbrush in the toilet. Would I be the asshole if I didn't help my mom after she abandoned me when I was 15? I, 23 male, am the drummer of a band, and a few months ago we signed a deal with a major record label, and in a few months we are releasing our first record. And over the past few months, lots of my family have contacted me asking for money. Most of my family have never really liked me. They are all Jehovah's Witnesses, and always told me I would burn in hell for listening to heavy metal. And my mom was the worst of them all. She would drag me to Kingdom Hall, the JW version of church, and everyone would form a circle and hurl insults at me, calling me a Satan worshipper, calling me ugly. Still don't know how that was gonna save me, and once burned all my records and CDs to protect my soul from that Satan music. Now I will admit there was a lot of fucked up stuff in my teenage years, like getting arrested for graffiti, skipping school to hang out at a record store, drinking and smoking weed. And one morning when I was 15, before I went to school, I told my mom, "Hey, Some guy David is gonna come by later with a package for me. Give him $25. She interrogated me for about 2 hours about what was in the package. But eventually, she let me go. And when I got home a few hours later, my mom and most of her stuff was gone. All that was there was the beat-up furniture, my records, my drum kit, my stash of pot, a bottle of Jack, a pack of Newports, and a note from my mom. Basically she said that I had become too much for her, and was violating her religious beliefs and couldn't live with me anymore. I haven't seen or heard from her since. After that, I had to start selling weed to pay bills. I was 15 and didn't have working papers, so I couldn't get a job. And for 10 months I lived off nothing but Doritos, Big Macs, cigarettes, booze, and weed. But eventually my lack of business knowledge caught up with me. I started giving girls free weed for sex, and would give my friends like 99% off discounts. And I got evicted and moved in with my older sister, whom the JWs had also treated like shit. And quit smoking cigarettes, cut back on my drinking. I didn't quit, I just stopped drinking till I passed out or choked on my own vomit. And started a few bands. None of them lasted longer than 3 months, and 3 years ago I started my current band. And yesterday my mom called me and told me that she had been evicted and heard about my deal and wanted some money for rent or to move in with me. I told her she didn't get to abandon me and then come back begging for money. She told me that she didn't want to have to do it, but I had driven her to leave and it was the hardest thing she ever had to do, and that I was violating her beliefs and she was justified to do it, and I owed her because she took care of me and put up with my shit for 15 years. I just hung up on her. When I told my girlfriend about it, she said that my mom kind of had a point, because there's no way any mother could leave her son without feeling guilt, and I did drive her to leave. So Wibta? Not the asshole. You were 15 when she left you, her child. She's only contacting you because you now have money, not for any true reconciliation. Not the asshole. The abuser can take care of herself. Not the asshole. JW wants your dollar. Don't do it. JWs don't believe in hell, so I don't know about that. That being said, I don't think it's right for anyone to come into someone's life after an absence, asking for things, especially money. Not the asshole. She didn't help you. She abandoned you as a minor because she couldn't be the responsible adult. Am I the asshole for letting my boyfriend sleep on the streets? So I, F19, met my boyfriend, M20, a year ago. We were coworkers. He was the new guy and I thought he was cute. We started talking and ended up spending New Year's Eve together at his place. From there we never left each other. Everything was great. He was my first real BF, gave me flowers, bought me jewelry, etc. I then learned that he lived at his ex's place but that she didn't live there anymore. Kinda weird, but whatever. After about a month, he tells me that his ex wants to move out and that he needs a place to crash. Me being in love, I agreed to let him live with me for a while so he can find a new place. This was in January. My mom wasn't pleased with the situation. Me being young, my parents still have a say in my life, especially when they're the one paying for my studio. But they agreed to let him stay until February, March at most. But slowly he started skipping work, saying he didn't feel like it, was tired, etc. At one point he ghosted our workplace and stopped going completely without warning anyone. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, but I thought, it's a big fast food chain, they'll be fine. So I didn't think anything of it, especially since he found a new job quickly. But he also ghosted that job after 3 weeks. So he had no income anymore. And never offered to pay the rent or at least the groceries. So I ended up having to feed 2 people with one half-time job while also being in college. While he played video games all day. My mom literally had to tell him to pay the groceries because he wouldn't have had the decency to offer to do it. I warned him months in advance about me having to move out in July so that he had time to look for a job or a place, but he never did. He would say he did, but I knew he didn't. We got stuck in that loop for months of him not looking for a job, apartment, no social life, while I was doing my best to work, study, cook, etc. I wasn't seeing the red flags. Meanwhile, he wasn't the most affectionate boyfriend either, but I was fine with it, mostly BCS. I felt comfortable in having a relationship and was scared to be alone, depressed again. Fast forward to this week. I moved out, but I'm living at a family member's house until I can move in Sept. So now boyfriend has no job, no place. He managed to get 3 nights at a hotel but now ran out of money. My mom did everything she could to help him, but he doesn't want to be helped. She took him to job interviews, sent him apartments to visit, landed him money. And my family won't let him stay at their house because he lived like a parasite with me basically. He's now on the streets. I feel bad, but I also feel like he used me without me realizing. Took him meeting my family this week for me to confirm what I thought. He's not in love with me, he puts me down, trash talks me in front of my family and is manipulative. Still I feel bad sleeping in my bed while he's sleeping on a bench outside. Why is he still your boyfriend? He's dragging you down. Free yourself, sis. Not the asshole. You have no reason to feel bad. Luckily you saw him for who he was. He's an adult. He made his bed, he can lie in it. Not the asshole, he is a grown adult, that needs to grow up and work and take care of himself. His own decisions took him where he is now. Rock bottom is what he needs to wake up. Oh, he realized. He was well aware he was using you. And him not getting a job or staying with the job was the red flag. Don't make this mistake again. Not the asshole. He literally chose this. He literally made this bed and is choosing to be there. You can't help him. Break up with and don't look back. Am I the asshole for making a nurse cry after she insulted my parents? I care for my parents, mainly my dad. He's had a stroke, quintuple bypass, aortic valve replacement, pacemaker and has end-stage COPD, for which he's in the hospital often. The man has 9 lives. Recently, he went into the ER because his pacemaker was beeping. It was the first time it had beeped, so it freaked him out, especially since he's had it less than a year. My dad's way of handling his many trips to the hospital is to joke around with staff and downplay the seriousness of the situation. He does this to relieve his own nervousness and to keep my mom from getting too upset. He was being his usual self as he got hooked up to telemetry. We were all trying to keep things lighthearted. The ER has a machine that will run a diagnostic on the pacemaker. To use it, the nurse needed the model. My mom keeps a card in her purse for this very reason but couldn't find it. After a while of searching, she was approaching a panic attack. The nurse was sighing while mom was getting increasingly upset. Finally mom found it and the nurse ran the diagnostic. The results don't come immediately. They are sent to the manufacturer, then the nurse has to call to get the results. While waiting, I went to the bathroom. As I was walking back, I passed the nurse's station and could hear her talking to the pacemaker tech. She told the tech, in an annoyed voice, "Yeah, this family is totally off, like we were crazy people." I was stunned, so kept walking but was pissed by the time I got back to Dad's room. I didn't tell my parents what I heard because I didn't want to upset them. Turns out the pacemaker just needed an adjustment, then Dad was discharged. At this point, I told the nurse that I didn't appreciate what she told the pacemaker tech. I told her that my parents were the kindest, least crazy people she could ever meet. They had been through so much they just couldn't get super serious anymore for every potential emergency. She looked at me shocked, put her head down and apologized. She didn't intend for me to hear it. There was an assistant in there too who just went wide-eyed and didn't speak. As we were leaving the hospital, my dad realized he forgot his wallet, so I went back in the ER to grab it. The nurse stopped me and was crying. She apologized again, said she'd had a long day, was flustered by my mom's panicking and that she'd never purposely insult a patient. I nodded and told her I'd pass her apology along to my parents. After we left though, I started feeling really awful. My first career was as an RT in an ER and I know it can get exhausting. I also know some patients can really be difficult to handle and remembered how my coworkers and I used to get frustrated. I further thought I was wrong to bring my complaint up with the assistant in the room, though I'm not sure when else I could have talked to her alone. It's been bugging me since. So am I the asshole? Nah, she didn't mean for you to hear that, and yes, nurses have very stressful jobs with very little rest. But you did hear it and it's okay to stand up for yourself and your family. I'd say don't feel bad for standing up for yourself. But also try not to hold it against the nurse. Not the asshole. I mean, it sucks she cried and all, but she shouldn't be bad-mouthing patients and their families because she had a bad day. Not the asshole. My mom was on the brink of death and the ER nurses had the audacity to joke and laugh amongst themselves as they were hooking her up to things and taking vitals, and I lost it on them. I'm sitting here with my heart dropping. The last thing I want to hear is you just having such a good time when I had to beg for someone to come to the room after waiting for over 20 minutes thinking she would die before anyone came to the room. And sure enough, her BP was so low she almost did in fact die. I get getting desensitized but have some common sense. Not the asshole. She can sound off as much as she wants, but you just don't do it when patients or their relatives, or anyone else for that matter, can hear it. That was highly unprofessional of her and I think you handled it very well. Not the asshole. The nurse acted in an unprofessional way.